Hey guys, welcome back to the Free Life Agents podcast. Today, I'm super excited. We got a really special guest today. I mean, he's not just a really good friend of mine, but to me at least, his resume is absolutely biblical. This guy used to be a fighter pilot for the Air Force. I mean, that alone is probably one of the coolest things I've ever heard. And then he's also a cancer survivor, which is awesome. And always great to hear those stories. And obviously, he's going to be talking about that a lot today in the podcast as well. And he's also a super successful real estate investor and a real estate agent. And just to list off, last year he did 50 million in production by himself alone. And you probably think he's been in the business for 5, 10 years, but no, it's really only his third year in business. So welcome to the show, my good friend, business partner, Matt Gardner. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Kobe, man. Appreciate the intro. Yeah, man, happy to help, happy to be here, and excited to chat about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, no problem, Matt. Thank you for being here. You're a super busy guy and you're super successful. So you taking the time out of your day to be here, I really appreciate it. But just for those guys who who don't know who you are, who may not know who you are, would you mind giving yourself, just a brief introduction? I know I kind of listed off your resume, but just tell everybody kind of your story, how you got into real estate, what you were doing before, and what kind of led you to the success that you are experiencing right now.
Okay. Yeah. So like you said, I was fighter pilot. I flew F-15s. It's me in the background there flying my F-15 over in Wales, actually. So I flew F-15s for about 5 years, and I went and transitioned to F-35s for another about 5 years or so. I was in the Air Force about 11 years total. And loved it. It was fantastic. We traveled all over the world and, did the standard military thing. It was fantastic. Then about 4 years ago now, I was about to go out to Top Gun training for the F-35, which is the new Joint Strike stealth fighter in the Air Force. I was going to be the youngest guy going out there, which I was stoked, literally on top of the world. And then all of a sudden I walk up the hotels when I was in Vegas. I was walking up the hotel room floor and I just got out of breath. I was just, man, this is weird. And whatever, I was there for the week, just felt kind of exhausted. And so when I came back, I talked to my doctor, told her I got randomly out of breath and just kind of been extra tired. And next thing you know, did a scan and had 11 tumors in my chest. 9 tumors in my chest. And anyways, regardless, it was a surprise, right? Like out of the blue, it just hit you. And over the course of the next week or two, proceeded to need to get some heart surgery. And then we started chemotherapy. And then, the classic, became sick boy for a while, lost all my hair. And, but luckily it was all, knock on wood, I'm good to go now in remission. But while I was down, there was a good chance that the Air Force wasn't going to let me fly again because the tumors had kind of impacted my lungs and caused some permanent lung damage. And so one of my buddies introduced me to real estate, basically. So that's when I basically transitioned from studying, Russian, North Korean, Chinese tactics that we would like practice and fight, towards, to transitioning to studying real estate tactics, and I took my same work ethic and work mentality of, crushing it every day, 12, 14, 16-hour days, whatever's required to get on top of the game and educate myself while I was down. So while I was sitting there with my porta catheter in and doing chemotherapy, which is like book after book after book and podcast after podcast. And after I was done with that, I started networking and kind of growing the network and that was the start of it, man. Just fell in love. Just like when you find something passionate, I got bit by the real estate bug. I got bit hard and I really, really loved it. So from there I transitioned. Eventually, after a year and a half of the Air Force waiting, they eventually gave me the boot. I retired in April of 2020. So my first full year of real estate was last year. But I started about a year and a half in while I was still in the military. Started growing my team there. I just found like I had a good knack for sales and a good knack for investing. I'm a numbers guy for sure. My background's engineering, got a master's in engineering management. And it just really clicked, both sides of it. And it's nice because as an investor agent, it's very symbiotic, like doing one really helps the other and vice versa. Started growing my team to where we are now. We have 25 agents on my local production team. And then within our brokerage, I have 110 agents or so on my overall downline now. And as far as investing side, we have about 600 doors now. And it's awesome. So we went from short-term rentals, which I absolutely love, owned a couple mobile home parks. I still own an mobile home park that we're transitioning to be an RV park, and some apartment complexes in Mobile and Montgomery. And it's awesome, man. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, I can tell. Like I said, I mean, this guy's resume absolutely biblical. He hasn't even been in the business for that long. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome, Matt. Just kind of going back into getting into real estate in the first place. I mean, obviously, you were kind of introduced to it, like you said, by a friend of yours, with a couple of books and introduction. But I mean, there's a couple of different things out there. We see, people kind of transitioning from careers, either out of difficult situations, almost similarly to what you had
Mhm.
to experience. But there's always these different options out there. But you chose real estate, and is there anything specific that kind of went into why you chose real estate, or is it just because kind of happened at the right time at the right place? Somebody introduced you to it.
There's definitely a case of right place, right time for sure. But I was introduced to a lot of other things. As I was getting out of the military, I had multiple, I had top secret, fully classified security clearances, and obviously a very unique and specific skill set in the military, right? And so I had a lot of people reach out to me for jobs. And as they reached out, they're like, hey man, I'll offer you can start next Monday, 180 grand, go. I'm like, wow, that's really enticing. It's almost double my salary what I'm in now, because I was an officer in the military. I was doing pretty well already, but it just I didn't see myself doing it for 20 years, just sitting at a desk, because I was a pilot, right? I want to go out, I want to be out, I want to fly, I want to be active. There's a lot of time in the vault, a lot of time studying, a lot of time debriefing, for sure. But I didn't like the thought of being at my desk every day, and I needed something more active. And I just through reading with real estate, I just found like a passion, like internally, like I wanted to follow my gut. So I told my family, I was like, we're just going to try it 1 year. If I fall on my face, we can fall back. My security clearance will still be valid. I can do the 9 to 5 in job type of thing. But really, what the big kicker for me was, in the military, I worked very, very hard, right? And so, like I said, 14, 16-hour days were not uncommon. But then I looked at other people who were the same rank, getting paid the same amount, and they'd work their 6 to 8 hour days, And so I was a little bit jaded near the end, I'll be honest. The whole salary mindset of some people really just love their job and they have passion for it, and they'd crush it. And other people just get out as quickly as can. But the pay is the same. In the military, everyone you can tell based on your rank and time in service how much you're getting paid. So I was excited to take the jump to go from a complete salary based pay to a complete performance based pay. So I was like, all right, we'll see how I perform. It was a risk. It was scary for sure. I have a wife. I have four beautiful kids. So like it's not like it's just I'm going to fall on my face by myself. I needed to make sure that I jumped and we were going to be able to land on both feet. But it was a risk we wanted to try, and so luckily we landed on our feet so far. Knock on wood, it continues a good trend.
Yeah. I mean, with your like you said, performance based industry,
Mhm.
somebody like yourself who's a high performer, obviously are going to get rewarded. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
people kind of gravitate towards that. And kind of touch on that for a little bit. How obviously you have, like you said, you had the work ethic, for being in the military of 14, 16-hour days, but jumping into the real estate industry, obviously learning a bunch of new things. Was that just kind of like I wouldn't say like a easy transition for you, but for people looking, from the outside looking in, it really does seem like almost like a seamless transition for you to have the success that you had in one industry and transition into another one.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's work ethic, man. I really think it is. I've said this before. I equate it to like if I were to start any other industry now, like let's say you and I wanted to go start I don't know, a bubblegum company, something random, like what we would have to do is we would need to really work a ton up front. Like you have to put the time in up front in order to enjoy the time on the backside. It's investing time, right? So I invest my time, invest my money up front. So hopefully on the backside, I have more time and I have more money, more time freedom, at least. Like you get time back. And so that was my mentality. I was like, I'm just going to jump in feet first, and I'm going to like become the expert as quickly as I can. Whatever they say, you need 10,000 hours and whatever it is required to become an expert. So you could do 5 hours a day for however long that takes, 10 years, or you can do 20 hours a day for, cut that time in a quarter, So that was my intent, to try to just do everything I could and just completely immerse myself in it. If you want to learn a foreign language, sure, you could study Babel half an hour a day and you'll eventually maybe learn it, right? But if you really want to learn a language, go to that country and immerse yourself in that culture. I'm sure you're going to learn the language a lot quicker. And so that was really, I think, my key to my early success is just really jumping in and kind of having that whole Cortez mindset of burning the boat, so
Yeah.
that was my thought.
Yeah, that's awesome that you said that. A lot of new agents don't kind of understand that, where they have to actually burn the boats, like you said, and
Yeah.
give up, whatever the backup plan is, almost mentally give up the backup plan and just fully immerse themselves in this new industry, kind of like you did. And
Yeah.
kind of touching that on that again, is that something that what you did and where you're fully immersing yourself into industry wise, but not as much in the kind of like the self development side? Because I know a lot of people coming into entrepreneurship like to talk about and focus on self development, but I guess that's something that you kind of skipped, right? Or did you not skip that, or did you kind of go back and actually did that as well?
I think that was definitely part of it. Like I said, there's just a lot of new things when you jump and I leave a career that is very regimented military lifestyle into where I had a boss who had a boss who had a boss who had a boss, very clear hierarchy of who I need to talk to and who I had to report to, versus now it's like I wake up and it's on me. I have people that, broker to report to, but not really, right? And in our brokerage kind of setup, there's not, they don't really care, right? You can produce, you can not produce effectively, and they're not going to be hounding you. So there was definitely a personal development phase that I am always going through, and it's a mentality for sure. I think it's a basic concept of, do you have like a scarcity mindset or do you have a growth mindset? So for me, I definitely latch onto the growth mindset. I'm always trying to learn something, which goes down to personal development. Yeah, a lot of times I'll read a books on real estate. Other times I'll read books on the Miracle Morning, or seven whatever seven. Where's my books are over there. Whatever, the 7 habits, the 7 high performing habits, or whatever, high performing habits. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, I'm always reading whatever I can to try to enlarge my capability. The other thing that's nice is the more you read, from the personal development side, or just from the interest level, like Elon Musk. I'm a massive fan of Elon Musk, so I read his biography, or Steve Jobs, or Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, or just finished one by Bob Iger, the previous CEO of Disney. And so The Ride of a Lifetime is a great book as well. I think the more you read, the more you can relate to people then too, which helps you in business. And so, yeah, it's not just learning, hey, here's the sales tactics, here's how do you do what you need to do. It's more like, become a well-rounded person so you can relate to more people, which helps your business even more. So anytime I'm reading a book, I try to relate it to my conversations that I'm having at the time, because there's almost always, I know you're a big Disney fan. So, and so if I were to say, hey man, I just read Bob Iger's book, it's really cool. I just read about how, the Star Wars acquisition and how that went down with George Lucas. And you're like, oh dude, yeah, it was cool. And you might know something about it. You kind of have a little bit of more of a connection, versus just like, hey, I'm your real estate agent, let's talk about the sale. Like it's trying to connect with people on a personal level. And the way you do that is by being a well-rounded person and reading and getting yourself involved as much as you can.
Wow, yeah, that's something that's really. I'm glad you said that, and yeah, I'm gonna need you to give me the title of that book for from Bob Iger, because I
Yeah.
definitely need to read that one too.
Yeah, it's right sitting on my side table over there. It's called The Ride of a Lifetime.
Ride of a Lifetime, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna read it. Hope the audience listening here, who's a big Disney fan,
Yeah.
should also read it as well. I mean, there's something that you can learn from any business out there. I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting too. That you're kind of learning from not just people in the real estate industry, but people who are successful in life in other businesses, other industries, and kind of how have you kind of applied that in terms of as a new agent, where you might not be able to offer as much value. And I think a lot of people were kind of wanted to hear that from you, because you have so much success so early. How do you provide that value as a real estate agent or as a real estate investor, working directly with a seller?
Yeah.
How can you provide that value as somebody who don't have the experience that other experienced agents or investors might have?
Yeah, that's a tough nut to crack early on. One is leverage. One of my keys to growth in every aspect of my life, whether it be sales or investing, is definitely leverage. Early on, my very first flip, I in the military, I had a very poor dad mentality, right? I was like, I'm in the military, secure job, I'll be able to retire. I literally had $2,000 in my savings account, and that was it. I was like, I didn't realize I was living paycheck to paycheck, because I felt comfortable, right? Because my paychecks always came, and I had no problem with it. Until I realized, oh crap, if I don't get paid next month, if the Air Force kicks me out, like I don't have enough to last a month, so like it was a scary thought, man. And so when I jumped into real estate, being inexperienced, I needed to figure out how to add value. That's the whole point of real estate. If you don't focus on money, don't focus on transactions, just focus on adding value to people in whatever your niche is. Naturally, I found that, or should I say, I found that I'm naturally inclined to the investing side. And I love the numbers aspect of it. I love the creation of generational wealth and the whole concept of just investing in general. Whenever I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that whole idea of creating wealth, it blew my mind. Like it's funny to look back at it now, but the first time I read it, I was like, holy crap, you can buy a house, put a little bit of money in, and then it's worth more. Like I knew conceptually that was a thing, but I always just envisioned there was only so much money in the world, and it blew my mind, this whole concept of creating wealth. So going back to answer your question now, adding value is the key. So, if whatever circle you're trying to, be focused within, whether it's you're in a gardening club or you like cars or you like whatever, bubble gum, if there's a freaking bubble gum group, I don't know why I keep bringing up bubble gum, but like whatever it happens to be the guy that people want to talk to about it, be that person. And that comes back to education. So going back to the very first thing we talked about is you need to crush it early and like educate yourself to the max extent. And that's not just through traditional books, it's through networking. Networking is huge. So early on, I would go to every real estate investing networking group that was around, because I wanted to be smart in that aspect. I wanted to be smart in that realm. And I wanted to know the local people who are the local players. Most of my clients are not local. Most of my clients are remote investors who are looking for short-term rentals along the Florida Panhandle. That's mostly who I cater to. But regardless, I wanted to be smart in the area. And so then I started my own meetup because I wanted to have a little bit more control. And, and when I run my own meetup, now I have a little bit more credibility because I'm the guy who leads the meetup. All that means is I started a thing on meetup.com, like that's it. Doesn't give me any actual authority, but, and then from there, it just kind of grew. And so like that was my big key early on, is educate myself. So whenever people are looking for help, I'm there to add authentic value. And it's something I authentically enjoy. If I didn't enjoy investing, I shouldn't be crushing myself in it. Like, just like, I'll bring up cars. Like, yeah, sure, I like a good car, but I'm not gonna be the guy to go to like these car shows, be like, oh, look, that's a Hemi, sweet. Like I don't know, like I'm not a car guy, so that's not my niche, and that's not something I could add value in. But I'm sure if I was a real estate investor or real estate agent and I love cars, you better believe that's where I'd be focusing my energy, because that's what I'm passionate about. So
yeah. Something really for the listeners to think about right now, like what you said, is how can you kind of combine almost your passions with real estate as well, and how to actually go out there and offer value in your circles.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, just touching back on something else you mentioned in that answer that you were giving me there, that realization that you had, that you were living paycheck to paycheck, and you kind of you can kind of go into your story more in detail here, but is that something that you kind of realized after you got cancer and you were dealing with that, or is that something you realized after you jumped into real estate, where that realization came upon you, where, oh my God, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with cancer in like mid 2018. And that's when, life views start to shift a little bit when you have a potential life-threatening situation like that. And that's when I was like, oh crap. So if I die tomorrow, how's my wife and my family going to be? Sure, they'll get their insurance, which would be great. I'm happy we got that covered. But like if that didn't exist, how well would they do? And it was not very good. They had $2,000 in my name. And so it was during that point where I started real estate while I was still in the Air Force. So there's about an 18-month period where I was doing dual things. So I was a part-time agent for about 18 months. And so I started, getting really heavily involved in investing in the groups locally and real estate sales as much as I could, but I was an inexperienced agent. So I wasn't crushing it in sales that first year. I think December 1st of 2018 is when I got my license. And so 2019, my first full year as a full-time, I was a part-time agent that entire 2019. I still did pretty well. I did about 73,000 in gross commission earned. And so I was very happy with that. But it got to the point as a part-time agent, even like I couldn't do them both. I was still working at that time. I was pulling back my Air Force stuff. I was, slightly less motivated because I expected, the writing was on the wall there. So I was working, 8 to 10 hour days rather than 14 to 16 hour days. And then on the backside of it, I would do real estate. I would just burn the candle on both ends, but that can only last so long, right? And so that's when I had to leverage somebody. So I got my first full-time assistant at that point, where my Air Force boss, he started talking to me, started getting pretty pissed because I was doing real estate activities during my Air Force job occasionally. And it's a big no-no. I shouldn't have been doing it. And that's why it essentially forced me to leverage somebody else. And so I hired my first assistant. And then from there, I saw my business skyrocket even more because I was like, wow. So like in the morning, I'd have my little huddle with my assistant. I'd go to work. She's working for me throughout the day. After I get off work, I would then huddle with her one more time. Hey, what did we accomplish? And then I would knock out real estate then until, midnight, 1 o'clock or whatever. And then we'd repeat the cycle. And that was kind of the workflow for about a year and a half or so with her, which was huge.
Wow. Yeah. So like you said, leverage, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
something that you use not just in your kind of your personal finance and your investing business and why you decided to get into real estate and wealth building in the first place, but also how to run your business, right? Using leverage. And maybe that's kind of how you can, expand on why you have, the success that you have in your local production team with your 25 agents, and how you began to kind of start that team as you kind of grew your income as a real estate agent. Because, obviously, you're working, like you said, 8 to 10 hour days.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but you were working 8 to 10 hour days and you were still doing, in my opinion, that's pretty good production as a brand new agent as well.
Yeah, I was
in your
super happy
first
with
year.
it. I didn't quite cap. I almost capped, with our brokerage model. I was quite almost there. And that was my goal that first year. Didn't quite hit it. But leveraging other people with the team. So the reason I started the team was again, through the investor networks, I met a local wholesaler who, for those who don't know, wholesaler, they do off-market deals essentially, right? They advertise, I'll buy your house cash. And they effectively flip the contract. They don't flip the house. They sell the contract to other people. They're professional advertisers for the most part. But this wholesaler was a prominent wholesaler in the area, and she had a call center with I think 4 or 5 call reps that were just calling all day long, and they had tons of mailers going out all the time. And she had a list of 3,000 names of people who had called in from the mailers and said, "Hey, I want to sell my house. What are you willing to offer me?" And say it's a $300,000 house, they might offer, $100,000 or $150,000 because they're investors. They need to get it at a steep discount. And these people are like, "Oh no, I'm the house is perfect. I just want to sell it for, top dollar." And they'd be like, "All right, sorry, we're not for you." And they had this list of people who called to say they wanted to sell their house, and they weren't, well, she was an agent, but she wasn't focused on being an agent. She was focused on the investing side. And so those people they had it on the list and they weren't really doing anything to monetize them. And so I was like, holy crap. And so she told me all this. I was like, can you share the list with me? Like, I'll give you, she's an agent, so I can give you 25% of, a referral for everyone I close. And she's like, sure. And so there I was, I had a list of 3,000 names of people, motivated sellers. And I said, oh man, I can't tackle this alone. And so through my local investment group, I kind of threw it out to a couple of the agents that come out. And I was like, hey guys, would you consider being on my team if I had a list of 3,000 people who wanted to sell? That's kind of how it started. I had too many leads to handle. And then as the momentum grew and as the team grew, and I had even more referrals and more business come in to where I just couldn't handle all the leads. And so that's why I started the team side of the house, and leveraging the team helped even more. It's not just on the production side. Sometimes it's on the time side. Maybe you have a team, an agent who's an hour and a half away in an area that I need to get a video. And, I'm like, hey man, can you help me out, get a video today? And I'll do the same thing for them. If I'm in an area, we help each other out, and more than just, hey, here's a lead, you go make me money. It's more of a support role and trying to help each other just do well in general.
Wow, isn't that a problem? Well, you said right there, isn't that a problem where every agent wants to have as a new agent, having too many leads to handle?
Yeah.
3,000 leads. So kind of like, did you just meet this wholesaler at a networking event? How did you meet them, or were you looking for?
No, I met him, and again, I'm always trying to grow relationships and add value where I can. And she's just a very prominent wholesaler. And I was like, hey, what are you doing through retail leads? And she's like, oh, we occasionally farm them out, but she's like, it's just too much work to follow up, or yada yada. So I was like, well, why don't you just connect me to your system? So they were using Podio as their CRM. Through Zapier, I was able to link it to our CRM of KV Core. And so literally the leads just started flowing in organically. So as they would come in, they'd hit it, they'd come to me, and then eventually it was too much for me. And that's when through KV Core, you can automatically route them. And so a lead would come into their system. They would tag it as retail lead, basically. It would flow through Zapier into KV Core. From there, it would hit our lead routing tool. I got to the point where I got too busy with my personal leads. I had all of those leads just route directly to the agents. And so it would hit there, and I'll have a routing system that would route them directly to the agents. And it was great.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you're listening to this and you're a new agent, or even if like, you've been in the business for a couple of years and you're just struggling, and you want to have the same problem that Matt had when he first started as an agent, having too many leads to actually handle,
Yeah.
reach out to this guy or reach out to me, and I'll help you connect you with this guy, and listen to the lessons that he's actually sharing in his podcast as well. Like, go out there, immerse yourself in the subject, make sure that you're actually confident and able to offer some kind of value to the marketplace.
Mhm.
Actually go out there, network, meet new people, and you never know, right? The opportunity that's actually going to come up. Because is that something that kind of exploded your business from the beginning? That list of 3,000 leads, or was that just a part of it?
It was a part of it for sure. It wasn't everything. I would say personally, most of my leads came just from organic networking and adding value, through the various Facebook groups or, Instagram connections or bigger pockets or, there's so many different things. I was just trying to get involved as many things that I could that I authentically enjoyed. So I would want to be involved in them. My very first client, I met her at one of these meetups. Her name's Sarah. She's absolutely stellar. I helped her find a house, and the first house as a new agent, you're not going to be getting the $1 million houses. Like just accept that now. Like if you do, you're the one off, right? It doesn't happen. Typically, you're starting off in this whatever range you are locally. You're going to be starting the bottom percentage of that range in your area. And so just accept that and accept it for what it is. It's a learning experience, right? So get the experience early on. And maybe you grow your systems and tools to where like that's where you crush it. Maybe you just crush it in the sub $100,000 market, but you do 300 sales in a year. Like good, like that's awesome. Grow your systems and crush it. I really love the short-term rental space, and in the short-term rental space locally, you can do very well in the luxury market. And so, yeah, I started in the small duplex townhouse style kind of mentality of, this typical people looking for burrs for under $100,000, and that's what they wanted. But as you grow and you gain value and you gain experience. Now, for me as an investor, one of my big keys to my personal growth was making my own investments successful. And so I could then talk from an experiential kind of perspective. So my very first flip, I only had $250 I invested in my very first flip, so I put a video on my YouTube channel, which I'm not super active. I know I need to be more active in YouTube because it's a massive value add. I put a video on my YouTube about self-directed IRAs. And I said, hey man, did you guys know you can use your IRA for real estate? Like, this is cool. I didn't know about this. I just learned about this. It's nuts. And I had somebody reach out that I hadn't talked to in like 8 or 9 years. And he's like, hey man, I got a couple $100,000 in my IRA. Let me know if you want to invest. I was like, sweet. And then through Bigger Pockets, another forum that I was just actively involved on, an investor in Hawaii said, hey man, I got like $50,000 that I want to invest. Let me know. I like the things you're posting. You seem like you know what you got going on. And so from there, I put $100 to start a business bank account. And I put $150 to start the LLC through the state of Florida. LLC was created. We had a business bank account. They wired the money in. I bought our first wholesale deal. We flipped it. They made 60% of their money or something like that in 4 months. They were super happy. I turned my $250 into like 15 grand in my first deal. And, having an experience like that, then I could then like tell other people like, hey, this is how you partner. This is how you can leverage money. This is how you can use hard money. This is how you can, leverage this. And so that was my first flip. And then I had my first short-term rental. Then I bought my first mobile home park. Then I bought my first apartment complex, so like I can then leverage, I can talk on multiple levels to various investors because I have that experience. Now, is that experience required? No. But does it help? Yeah, it helps a ton to have that experience for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So just getting yourself out there, right? Getting yourself out
Yep.
there, learning it first, and then actually applying it so that you can actually offer the value that you can by, hey, I did this thing. If you didn't know this, you can also do this thing as well. It's not as hard as everybody kind of makes it seem.
Yeah.
It's just, common sense almost. And then you were just able to kind of figure out the common sense side of things pretty easily.
Yeah.
But
I think the big thing is perspective as well. Like you need to, I tell this to all my agents and everyone around. If you want to be successful, you need to stop focusing on money, stop focusing on transactions. You need to focus on relationships and adding value. My second flip, we lost $30,000 on my second flip, but you better believe I had private investors with me in that one. The way we had it structured, they were essentially just secured money. They weren't equity partners. They were just interest. You better believe they made their interests, they made their money, and even at my loss, right? And those same investors, because they saw what happened and I treated them well, they're now investing in with me and my other syndications we have going on. Hey, here's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to invest because they know I'm going to do everything I can to protect their money. And the same thing when it comes to transactions. There's transactions out there where, it's maybe not in your best financial interest to go through with it because, the listing agent's not offering you a large commission on your side as the buyer's rep, or maybe you have an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement signed with a client at a 3% or 4% or 2% or whatever you have them signed with. And the listing agent's only offering you 2% and you have a 3% agreement with them. Like maybe you say, I'm not going to charge you that extra 1% at closing because, again, I focus on the relationships over the transaction. Obviously, it's all broker approval and things like that you need to work through. But yeah, my big thing is always focusing on relationships as much as you can, man, versus the money. Because the moment you start focusing on money, it's pretty transparent. People see that and they can sense it for sure.
Yeah, people can definitely sense it, and you're not bringing the right energy to the table. I think you're not bringing the right conviction in your voice. You're not bringing the right energy, the right conviction in the way that you're actually interacting with people. When you're just out there, you're trying to make a quick buck off of somebody, or off of an investment even.
Yeah.
Versus you're going out there and seeing, how can I help you, and how can this be a win-win beneficial situation for the both of us.
Yep.
So yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, kind of going off onto the investment space. I mean, you said you just, kind of moved up from flipping to short-term rentals to mobile home parks. I mean, I guess we kind of skip a couple of steps here and then just go directly into this. How do you buy a mobile home park, Matt? Tell us how do you buy a mobile home park?
The two that I've bought so far have been seller financing. So the first one was through networking. I really wanted to get into commercial space. I was really excited about it. Listen to Brandon Turner talk about mobile home parks on Bigger Pockets, and just reading the various books like Crushing It in Commercial Real Estate and these other books that I'm reading. I'm like, okay, I want to get into this space because it seems to be the most passive way to enter real estate. Short-term rentals I love. Cash flow is great, but I'm a massive proponent of self-management. And so it's not necessarily passive, but it's not overly burdensome at the same time. But I had some other money that I wanted to start growing. And so I was like, all right, I want to get in this space. And so through one of the classes I was taking, it was a 6-month mastermind course that I paid, I don't know, $3,000 for or something for this mastermind course, and money well spent for sure. I met another investor who was another student in the course. He was also an inspector in the area, and he was inspecting a mobile home. And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm just so old to be dealing with this." Classic story. He was just an older gentleman. And he was like, "Well, I'll buy it from you." He's like, "How many you got?" He's like, "Oh, I got 17 lots." I'm like, "Sweet." And so he called me because we were in the class together, and I added as much value as I could and hit to him personally, during the class. He knew me, he liked me, he trusted me. And so from there, our partnership grew, and he said, "Hey man, do you want to buy this with me?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever it takes. I don't care. Like, how much? Let's run the numbers, So we started running the numbers. The seller was not a savvy investor by any means, and not a savvy manager either. Some of those places were complete dumps, but we wanted to turn them around. And so, we agreed on some seller financing terms. We split the money required to make it happen. And then, that's how the first one happened. It was seller financing through networking, essentially. It was never an on-market deal by any means. The second one we bought was on the MLS. So it was on the MLS. They were asking 2.8 million. And so this is a good lesson that I tell my clients about, of like, don't let list price scare you. Like, people list whatever they want to list, that's I can list my house right now for 4 million, but nobody's going to buy it, but I can list it for that much, so don't let sticker price scare you. And so they were asking 2.8 million. I was in the process of potentially selling my 5-bedroom short-term rental house that we were going to make a nice chunk of money. And so I planned on doing a 1031 exchange out of the house. And so this was a good candidate to exchange that money basically for a tax-free kind of transfer. We offered 1.8 million. We offered $1 million low on a $2.8 million house, thinking like, nah, they're not going to take it. Right. And I justify it too. Anytime I do a lowball offer, which I do often as an investor agent, I don't just be like, "Hey, 1.8 million, take it or leave it, sucker." That's not my mentality. I call the agent and say, "Hey, we're offering 1.8 million. I'll send you the offer here shortly. I just want to talk you through why. And here's our thought process." Bam, 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 bam. Like this, I feel like it's overvalued here. I'm more worried about this. This is the liability here, yada, yada. So I kind of go through and I explain my thought process. So it's not just like a kick in the nuts and a take it or leave it kind of mentality, right? And so I talked her through it, who then you hope that the agent then conveys it to the seller. She effectively did. And we ended up landing on a price of 2 million. And so I got an $800,000 discount off a list price. Now, if I were to buy it at 2.8 million, the numbers didn't look nearly as good. But effectively we bought it for 2 million with seller financing. And after we get it fixed up and running, we should be able to, have a value of 3 to 4 million. So we should be able to add another million or two onto the value of the park, hopefully. So we're in that transition right now of increasing rents and redoing the roads and adding more lots. So anyways, yeah, that's how I bought my first two, at least.
No, that's fantastic. And what you said about, I think for a lot of agents, and especially in this market, who if you missed what Matt just said, go back and really listen to what he just said right now, because lowball offers, right? Offering, deals or transactions, or making offers that are less than list price. Don't just give them a lowball offer. Actually find ways to justify it, either through your numbers or through different things, different valuations that you actually put time into it. Don't just make it seem like you're trying to rip somebody off. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in the market, I don't want to say I'm always getting discounts. Obviously, it's a hot market. That's definitely not the case. But even you have to be able to justify what you're doing, or figure out what the seller really wants, right? That's really it. You have that black swan, right? If you've read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, great book as well. Find the black swan if you can. If not, just figure out what the seller wants in general. A lot of times we're winning deals right now over list price because we have to in this competitive market. But it's not always about price. A lot of times it comes down to terms. Sellers worried you're going to back out. So you figure out how you can either remove or reduce contingencies to make it work out for your client or for yourself if you're looking to buy something. So yeah, just trying to add value even to the seller, right? Like it's all about adding value as much as we can.
Yep, exactly. Just add that value, and that's been a really good theme of this interview, I think, especially because somebody coming from the background that you do, a lot of people can get a lot of value out of this as well, just from you. You're like right now, you're adding value to the audience. So
happy to help.
yeah, no, and I know we're running out of time here, and Matt, you're a super busy guy, so I kind of want to end on this question because I just have to ask this. This is my passion. This is my main business. I have to do this.
Yeah.
So Matt, what brokerage are you at, and why are you at that brokerage?
So when I got my license, I interviewed 11 different brokerages locally, anywhere from Coldwell Banker, Century 21. We have some flat fee shops around here, like what's called World Impact. I think they're local, or at least Florida related, regional. And a lot of them seem very similar. So some of them have really great local training. Some had just really super friendly people. Other ones had better cuts. I was very interested in Keller Williams at first. I was about to pull the trigger on Keller Williams because I loved, as an investor mindset, I love the concept of having the passive income that their profit sharing model offered on top of the capping model. Some of these other brokerages that don't have caps blew my mind. I was like, wait, so if I make $1 million this year and I'm at a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split or 60-40 split, I'm going to pay you like 200, 300 or 400 grand. They're like, yeah, but we provide so much value and we have this listing presentation and we have the brand. We're going to bring you people. I'm like, yeah, but that's a lot of money I'm going to have to give you, And then you talk to someone at Keller Williams, like it's whatever their cap is, I was like, sweet. Until I went out to an event out in California where I met a guy named Chris Bounds, who's a stellar individual. And I met Chris in California and he told me about the EXP model, which is where I am. And so as a brand new agent, I came to EXP. I did not have any prior experience, didn't know the difference between, a house and a condominium or a townhouse or how to contract. I knew nothing about real estate. Right. So I am definitely like the poster child of coming as a fresh agent into EXP and taking the tools and systems that EXP offered and helping me flourish from there. So one thing that really helped me as a new agent with EXP was the mentor program. I had a local mentor that was absolutely stellar. And as a new agent with an EXP, you typically are assigned a mentor for your first 3 transactions. And that mentor is there to help you guide you through them. I was still a full-time Air Force officer at the time, so it wasn't like I could train with her on a daily. She's like, hey, you could be by my hip for the next 6 to 9 months, however long it takes you to get 3 transactions, or we can just do 1 phone call a week. She's like, whatever you want. I said, okay, this is perfect. It's exactly what I needed. I didn't want a brand that required me to be in the office every Thursday at 9 a.m. for training. I didn't want to have to sit floor duty to answer the damn phone as like some glorified secretary. That was not my goal. My goal was to, add value and get sales. And so the EXP model of the lowest cap around, on top of great splits with fantastic new agent training, with equity options where I could grow stocks like passively, and on top of the revenue share side, which was huge for me I know I'm not out there being a full-time recruiter. There are some people who do that, and it's fantastic because I think it's good for the company to grow producing agents. Now, do I want every agent to be a full-time recruiter? No, not by any means. But I do want attractive agents who are able to attract producing agents into the company for sure. Yeah, so like that was it, man. So there's just so many aspects of EXP that really resonated with me. I'm a millennial through and through. I hate paperwork, so I love that. I love the tech side of it. I love the fact that we could be virtual for 90% of what we do with the company. Yeah, so it just really resonated, and I've loved it, man. It's been a wild ride, and I'm not regretting it by any means. Plan on sticking with them for the foreseeable future. I don't plan on. I've had a lot of people try to recruit me out of the company, for sure. Once you do 50 million in sales, a lot of people will start to notice. But their sales pitches just aren't very good. I'll be honest. I come over and there's a high-end German brokerage around here, like an international brokerage that came in and tried to invite and recruit me. And I sat down and said, okay, what do you got, guys? Tell me. If I come to you and I bring my 50 million in sales and I do the same thing here, what does my bank account look like? What support do I have? Tell me. They're like, well, we have an 80-20 split. I was like, okay, what if I make $1 million this year though? What's my cap? What's my split? Like, okay, maybe we'll give you a 90-10. I was like, okay, so even at that point, I'm giving you $100,000, right? They're like, yeah, but we have the brand. I'm like, cool. What else do you have? And they're like, we have a really good listing presentation. I'm like, cool. What else? And they're like, that's it. And so I told them the model that we have with EXP. And, I was like, effectively, I paid my broker last year after making, a little over 7 figures in commission. I paid my broker like $7,000, like $7,500, something like that. And they're like, there's no way that's possible. I'm like, yeah, it is possible. So I kind of flipped around. Here's the EXP model. And so it was good, whatever. Again, growing relationships, adding value where we can. And so, anyway, roundabout answer, I'm at EXP. I freaking love it, man. It's been wonderful for me. Have some great people around me. I love the camaraderie. I love the teamwork. And I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome too, and I want to thank you for coming to EXP, because if you weren't here, Matt, by deductive theory, I wouldn't be here either, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity and the chain of events that happened after you joined EXP as well. But just a note for all the new agents out there who have these misconceptions, who don't understand kind of how this works. They think EXP is for experienced agents only. They don't think they can actually have success here. Clearly, that is not true. As much as I hate to say it, as much as people don't want to hear it, if you're not having success as a new agent at EXP, it's not because of the brokerage. It's probably because of you. If you don't want to hear it, you don't want to hear it. Turn the podcast off. Don't ever listen to me again.
Tell them to go read Extreme Ownership, and they'll hopefully change their mindset there.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, extreme ownership. But, Matt did it as a brand new agent. He had the work ethic, and he was able to be successful and did 50 million last year in his first full-time year in real estate. So, no, nothing makes Matt different from you guys. Just a regular guy. Like I've met him before in person. We had a great time, and looking forward to having even better times in the future. But just for anybody who wants to reach out to you, whether they're an investor looking to invest or a real estate agent looking to connect with you, learn from you, or anybody just wanting to see more of your information either on social media, YouTube, or like you said, on Bigger Pockets, what are some good ways to best connect with you?
Sure. So I'm our website's teamroar.org as our team. I think what else? If you want to email me, roar@teamroar.org. Super easy there. And then Instagram is at Destin Investing is my Instagram handle. So those are probably the 3 best ways to get a hold of me. But yeah, happy to help wherever I can do to help you guys grow or add value wherever we can. Like I said, that's my goal in life, is to help other people as much as we can.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for being here. I'll leave your information down in the show notes below so that people can reach you. Thank you so much again for being on this podcast. I know you're super busy, but super grateful to be your friend, your partner in business as well. And for those listening out there, if you want to reach out to Matt, he's always open to help. I know him personally. He's a great guy. And if you guys are watching this either on YouTube video form or listening to this on audio form, wherever you may be listening to this, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever, give it a review, subscribe, turn your notifications on. We always have great, amazing guests like these, like Matt here. So coming on week after week. And, guys, thank you, Matt, for being here again. And
my pleasure.
For you guys listening, thank you for listening to the show again. And I hope you got a lot of value from it. And I will see you guys on the next podcast. I will see you guys soon.